Is this on? Good afternoon. Welcome to the Escambia County Tourist Development Council Budget Workshop. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Philip, will you please, well, first, was the meeting properly advertised?
Mr. Chairman, the meeting was properly advertised in the Pensacola News-Journal on May the 15th.
Great, thank you. And will you please call the roll? Thank you.
Calling the roll, Matish Patel. James Reeves. Here. Ashley Hoffberger.
Here.
Shirley Cronley.
Here.
David Baer.
Here.
Charles Baer.
Here.
Jennifer Breyer.
Here.
Brad Mullinex,
Here.
and Jason Nicholson.
Here.
Great. All members present. We do have a quorum, so this is officially called to order. And at this time, we will we'll have public forum. Is there anyone here from the general public who wish to speak to tourism today? We do have one speaker, but it says on the agenda for James Seekins, is that? So would you like, if you're going to be, your organization is being discussed, would you prefer to speak during that time or now?
That would be great.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no one for public forum, at this time I'll call Stephen Hall to speak on the, or other? Someone from County OMB, thank you.
Afternoon, council members. My name is Jeremy Paglig, and I'm a senior budget analyst with the Escambia County Budget Office. And I'm here today to present the status of the TDT funds through April 2025. As always, I believe the clerk's office has already provided you with a detailed breakdown of the expenditures. As of the end of April 2025, FY25 collections, including interest, total $9,387,350. This compares to $9,615,769 in collections through April 2024. This reflects a decrease of approximately $228,419 year over year. To give you a clearer picture, the total collections for FY25 through April represent 45.79% of the annual TDT budget, which is set at $20.5 million. On the expense side, total expenditures through April 2025 amount to approximately $10.25 million. Finally, the current TDT cash balance stands at $28.49 million through April 2025. Thanks.
All right, any questions, comments about that? Okay.
Any idea why the decrease, or where the decrease was, the 228,000?
Council member, that is a fantastic question, and I'm ready to answer that for you. So basically, we have a decrease in interest earnings. So with that overall, so that's about just under $217,000. Our technical TDT collection is down about $11,500 between this year and last year. So we're very, very close to what we collected the same time last year.
Yep,
Yes.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Don't go far.
What's that?
Don't go far.
Do you want me to go ahead and do the next thing, or you want to?
Let's go ahead. Yeah,
Okay,
so the next item on the agenda is the proposed TDT budget. And before we actually get into the details of that, there are some concerns about the timing of receiving all of the documentation. They've been flowing. There's a ton of them. Obviously, there's a lot of requests, and they've been coming in over the last few days, and really not giving council members enough time to go through. Do you want to talk about the process and the applications and everything that's kind of gone on, that in addition to the extra workload created by whatever's going on through the clerk's office, et cetera?
So sure. So at any given time, just for council, just for your information, so there's myself, and I have my director's aide. So that is the staff that supports the Board of County Commissioners, constitutional officers, community partners, Escambia County Board of County Commissioners, all of our departments, and all of those interactions that we have on a daily basis, as well as the TDC. So as my commissioner can attest, the board has had me extremely busy over the last few months. We've been working on any number of projects, dealing with the board and board actions and things that we're moving the county forward with. So our applications. We have sent our applications out to everybody. So what we did here a couple of weeks ago, so we stopped doing a lot of the things that we normally do to support our board departments, to support the TDC as far as these applications. So I have to review these. So I want you to have a clean, good application that to the best of our ability to get the questions that this council asks for answered by our tourist development tax partners. So we read it through each application, we make sure that the financial information is there, we make sure that the financial information is correct. We do our very best to make sure that they answer the tourism-related questions related to the event or the activity or whatever the thing is that each of our partners are doing, so that you have the very best information to make the decisions that you make regarding the level of funding for each of our partners. So each year, that is a task. It takes any number of hours of staff time to do that. Now, we did get the vast majority of these done about a week ago, and then it takes our partners some number of days to get those back, and so those have been trickling in literally every day. So some folks do a fantastic job with just a couple of tweaks. Some folks, it's a lot more. So so that's kind of, it has always been a challenge. You know, we did our very best at the staff level. The only other thing that I could certainly suggest to council, and I know the chairman and I have discussed what qualifies for some TDT reimbursement. It's not really a percentage set in the statute, but potentially other indirect administrative costs for services provided by county staff could potentially be reimbursed, but not necessarily to answer or discuss that part fully today for a dedicated person that would do these sorts of things. But, and of course, have had some challenges on reimbursements related to tourist development tax expenditures, so we continue to work with through those with our clerk's office on a daily, weekly basis as well. So that is also time consuming. So, so again, from staff perspective, we've done the best that we could do regarding and with time constraints that we have to do all the numerous activities and things that we do.
Any comments?
I do.
Please.
Okay. First is, these were due initially March 25th, around that?
It's around that time. It may be April 1st, something like that.
Like, is there anything we can do here so that, I mean, we just don't allow it to bunch up this closely? Like, if the deadline to get it, that they had to get it back was this week, then why isn't our meeting in a week or two, or something to that nature where we actually, because I don't know how many hundreds of pages, Danielle, I mean, seriously.
More than-
Like,
well more
one
than 1,000.
attachment has 11 openings with so many pages, and those came, I don't know, how many today? 10? 10 to, I mean, and they've been coming daily, and I just think that we have for our due diligence, that, and honestly, for the public to be aware of what's going on. We are not, I don't know that we are really that effective up here today. I'm just being real honest here. So I think that we have to really rethink how we do this. If your dates have to be set in stone and they don't change, then maybe ours does. I don't know. Do we have a September budget responsibility? Like,
The county's budget is adopted at two public hearings in the month of September, the same as at the city.
okay, so okay, all right.
So what for timing wise of this council, what I've tried to do is we have a May budget workshop so that in our June meeting, we can adopt something to recommend to the county commission to put into their budget process, so that hopefully they'll accept our recommendation. And when they start having their public workshops and then public hearings, that it will be what this council has recommended, or at least had the opportunity to review what this council is. So if we push it, as we push that back, we butt up to overlapping with their workshops, et cetera, and they may not have that information. So there's the deadline for the applicants to submit and historically, many of these requests have gone through either Visit Pensacola or through ACE or through Pensacola Sports with a few others. And over the last few years, those have expanded. We're receiving applications from organizations who don't want to go through those processes because either they've gone through those processes and timed out, like Visit Pensacola does a grant program that I think is a 5-year program, and they time out of that. So then they come to us directly because they can no longer be eligible for Visit Pensacola's grant, and they come to us for funds. And so all of a sudden now we have this, and we've accepted them. So we have a longer list of requests that are coming in that are submitting for the first time, second time, and they may get them in under that deadline, but they're not complete or accurate, et cetera. And so the county Stefan tries to work with those organizations to refine their applications to get them more presentable for us, complete like we need for our policies or, consideration. And sometimes that takes a lot of time up until literally this past week. Is that fair to county staff? Absolutely not. Is that fair to this council? Absolutely not. So I think what we need to do is figure out if there's a deadline for application, that means a completed application. It's submitted as it's submitted. If you need work going back and forth with the county, then you better sit down with the county in advance of that. Or we continue to do this, and maybe today's meeting has to be postponed to another date so that we all have plenty of time to review these documents, because it is an extraordinary amount of documents. And I know that the county staff, every time I talk to Stefan, we talk about how much time he is having to spend related to tourism, which is a very small fraction of the overall operation of the county. Is a $22 million, $21 million budget of a almost nearly $1 billion budget. I mean, $850 million, and we're only 22%, and I'll guarantee he spends, I don't know how much of his time, but 25 to 50% of his time.
Depends on which year it is. Sometimes it could be 50%.
The current year we're in. It's an extraordinary amount. And it's not because of the council, and it's not always because of the applicants. There's some issues now that we've discussed over our last few meetings about the expectations for reimbursement by the agencies. We've asked the clerk of the court to give us an expectation, like what are the rules, where is the field goal, the goal line, so that when these agencies submit their documents, they know what the expectation is and they submit what's expected. But what's happening is they're submitting and then they're getting messages back saying we need more. That's what we wanted last month, but this month we need more. And we talked about in January trying to get that from the clerk's office. And Commissioner, you had mentioned talking to the clerk about getting that stuff. And I don't know where we are in that process, but that is taking up a whole lot of the budget office's time. Also, back and forth with Visit Pensacola and Pensacola Sports and the other outside agencies on trying to get those documents completed and accurate, and reimbursements. I mean, we still have 2024 fiscal year appropriation agreements that have not been closed. Tourism appropriation agreements. The Visit Pensacola one is not closed. ACE is not looking for reimbursement. Because they were given an advance that they worked down towards throughout the year, and so they had all of their funds to pay all their expenses, but it's still open. I don't know if that's because of the clerk's office or because of ACE, but there's still over $1 million outstanding for Visit Pensacola to get reimbursed, which is causing some cash flow problems for them to be able to continue to operate, to continue to pay vendors. I believe some of the vendors that they owe money to. I mean, they're paying as much as they can through other sources of funding, private funding they have. They shouldn't have to do that, but it's because the goal line keeps getting moved. All of that stuff has been operating, going on in the background, that's causing Stefan and his office to have these issues with working with the outside agencies to refine their applications, to get them to us in a timely manner to be able to review today. So trying my best not to make excuses of why we don't have them. We don't have them. If there's, this board would like to postpone this meeting, I'm happy to do that too. We have what we have, which is pretty incomplete to be able to make the decision that we need to make today.
How many things are on the agenda?
How many are on the agenda? There's just this one item on the agenda, but it's a budget and it's a list of outside agencies' requests that we're just getting today,
So
yesterday.
are some of the things exciting and complete?
Some of them have been submitted to us,
Are complete?
are complete, I believe. They're all,
Well, let's take the most exciting one and the most complete one and deal with it first.
well, yeah, I don't know if everybody's had enough time to look through everything.
I have a comment.
I mean, yes, Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm going to share some of the same thoughts that Councilwoman Breyer brought up. You know, the amount of information we got, I mean, there was a bunch of it sent out at 7 o'clock last night, and then some more today. And I don't feel like I've had enough notice. I don't feel like the public has any idea what's going on. I'm looking at one of the applications here. It's not signed. It's not complete. So, you know, I've been through this process with an outside organization, and I know what has to be done, and I know the level of information has to be submitted, and I understand that you all are under a lot of stress with numerous things that are going on. My big issue, and the chairman's already mentioned this, is I don't feel like we're prepared to take action today. Not that we're doing action, we're not going to vote, I don't think, but even have a workshop and speak intelligently about what has been submitted to us, I don't think we've had time to prepare for that. Because I don't get a lot done after 7, especially when you throw some things with 11 attachments in there. And even one of those was thrown in there with 11 attachments isn't even in the list that's in the shared folder because it's outside of what we're discussing today. So I'm not even sure why that was sent. It's like a scavenger hunt trying to figure out what we're supposed to read, what we're supposed to understand. And I would much prefer to do this after we have some time to review the records that are in there. And I don't like the idea that we had people come here and we may have to postpone this meeting, but I don't feel like I can discuss what's in here because I don't feel like I've had time to review them. Thank you.
People must have a lot of time on their
Thank you for all your help. I know you've been really overworked, and this has played a big part in it. From a compliance standpoint, I'm not a huge fan of giving people hundreds of thousands of dollars that can't fill out a form correctly. So I get that some of it's complicated, and maybe we shoot it back to them once, and if they fail to complete it, maybe they just don't get to enter that time. I think that would take a lot off of your plate, but I don't think we should have to work harder to give someone money. So if we could look at adopting that for next year, I would really appreciate that. And then we did make a quick reference flyer for how TDT dollars can be used. It was a 2-part flyer. One part was included as backup to the agenda, and then we actually have a second one that didn't make it on there with the restricted uses. Common problems that we've seen, like, can I pay myself back? Or can we use it to purchase alcohol? The answer to both of those are no, but it seems to come up continuously. So we'll work to get that second part attached as well.
And just for some additional information for the council, so I know council has made some recommendations. I know Visit Pensacola has made some recommendations. We did incorporate those into the 2026 application. One of the other questions that I sent back to each applicant, what was the who or what is the source of your metrics data? So I know there were some questions this year, you know, so when folks turn in their report card as to how good was this event. So one of those questions that I've asked was, how did you get the data that supports your event? So that can be shared with you all, right? So that question can be answered. You know, one of the things Visit Pensacola asked for was a marketing plan. So we've asked each applicant for a marketing plan. So, and there was an additional question that we added at VP's request, which was a legitimate question. So So to maybe help a little bit as far as our partners are concerned. So the questions do get a little harder each year based on the questions that come from council and from my board and, just in the reporting, and certainly based on input that we receive from our clerk's office. These are the things that we're looking for. These are the things that are necessary for you to get your reimbursement. So we're trying to incorporate a lot of that information, or as much as we can, to check every box, to answer every question to the best of our ability. So yes, it's a challenge for everybody, but let me assure you, we are doing everything that we can do to get it as good and as right as we can make it. So when you do get it, it is the information that you need to see.
Brad?
I agree with Mrs. Hoffberger. You know, when a form's not filled out right, you can't do that. You know, in a lot of settings, they'll say, this is not up to standard, and they have terms for that, and they'll just hand it back to you. And and sometimes I've been in that situation where you're trying to play the nice guy, and that just doesn't work out. And I've also seen in other settings, if you get denied, you have to wait a full year before you can reapply. And I think that's to help with the workflow. So I think there's some things in the procedures that might be able to maybe not completely make this an easy process, but just help with that flow and give our team some relief. And I know that's challenging for them. But they break their necks to do what's happened here just to find out this, and that's not easy for them either.
Could I say something?
Just-
I would like to, I know we've brought it up before with this board, but I'm sorry if I'm throwing Visit Pensacola, volunteering them for something, but there is a grant committee with Visit Pensacola, there's a grant committee with Pensacola Sports, and they have a whole process put together that kind of addresses all the concerns that we have here. And I really think that because it's proven there, folks should not be coming here for events to get grants for events. They should be going to one of those agencies and speak to those committees. And if you miss the deadline there, then I'm sorry, but the deadline's given and there's workshops and you have to attend the workshop. And if you don't get any money. It's just a part of the process. So if you miss it this year, you can come back next year, but I don't think they should miss it there and then get to come here, or, well, they don't give me enough money there, so I'll come here. I think that's been happening way too much over the last couple of years, and that's why these numbers at this board have been getting bigger. And I think some of it's because we don't have the planning and the organization here, so folks are like, well, I can really get a big chunk here, and I don't have to do half as much as they require me to do at Visit Pensacola or Pensacola Sports. And at both of those, you have to show that you bring the room nights. So if you don't show you got the room nights, you also don't get the full amount of your money. So if you've been awarded $5,000 and you say you're going to have 500 room nights, but you only have 100 room nights, well, you don't get $5,000. You get $1,000. So, and here, it doesn't work like that with us. So I think that's the reason why more and more folks keep coming here. So I really think we should be pushing anybody that's asking this board back to Visit Pensacola or Pensacola Sports if it's a sports-related event. Or then this board needs to get more organized and get the help of Visit Pensacola to have the process that they have, so that if folks are coming here, we have something to say to them or give to them instead of putting it all on Stefan and pretty much him and his aide. It's not fair to him and the aide if they're going to keep coming here and we're going to keep awarding it to folks. And I don't agree. I don't think we should make a decision. I'm not going to make a decision. My decision today was going to be no for every single ask, because if I don't have time to read it, I think it's the tax dollars, and I'm not going to say okay to it. So I hope we can meet again after we've had enough time to look things over.
Yep. And I would agree, if it's not infrastructure-based, so if we're not building a facility, if it's event-related, I like the idea of it having to go through Visit Pensacola. I think we probably need to look at how much money we're giving them for grants and maybe expanding their grant program so they have the capacity to do it. But you're right, they already have the system and the expertise. It doesn't really make sense that it's coming back to us. So maybe we just need to work with them to enable them to do more grants through that same process. Is that an option?
I think the sky's the limit on options.
Okay.
We years ago, we did that when we formed the unified budget group, that was the wishes of the commission at that time was, we want to quit having people come to the TDC and come directly to the county commission to make these requests for tourism dollars. We have these agencies, ACE with arts and culture, and Pensacola Sports with sports, and then Visit Pensacola with, all other adventure and beach and, all other tourism that generally covers the majority of tourism that we have here, drive those requests through them, through their grant programs, et cetera. It's just over time that's expanded through requests coming directly to us.
Could we just get a kind of a read on whether we're going to adjourn or whether we're going to go forward, just so, everybody spends their time to be here. So
Well,
stay here for 2 hours and not decide anything.
No, I agree. Well, I get the feeling that the majority of the folks aren't prepared today to make any, today we're not taking a vote. Today's just a workshop, so what the plan and what we've done at the workshop is to try to agree to what we're going to recommend and move forward to our board meeting, our June board meeting, to have a vote for the recommendation to the county. So today was just a workshop to work through those items, but it doesn't sound like the majority of folks, unless I'm reading the room wrong, aren't prepared today. So if that's the case, I'll entertain a motion to reschedule and adjourn the meeting. Yes.
Just one thing before I will float a motion in just a moment, but maybe the best analogy that I can correlate to what we're doing here, and as Stefan said, the questions do get harder every year. But if I go to a banker and I ask for $500,000, they're going to have some very specific questions, and I'm not afforded the option of answering those questions or not. They'll certainly allow me to not answer the questions, but I'm not going to get a check at closing. So as hard as it might be, we are dealing with a lot of money. The sum totals of the grant are, the ask is 2.1. The proposed is $1.7 million of the taxpayers' money. So with that, I move that we postpone today's meeting to allow for more time to fully vet each of the proposals and come back together for a special meeting to review before our June board meeting, council meeting.
So we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any further debate or discussion? Mr. Reeves? We can? What's that? I'm sorry. Will you turn your microphone on, please, sir? I can't hear you. Okay. Ms. Cronley?
This ends, we've gotten all the reports we're going to get. We aren't accepting any additional applications, right?
Everything, I believe, whether it was a fully completed application, there were a couple that have not been resubmitted, if you will,
Okay.
with the requested updates. There were a few of those, but we wanted you to have those as well, as quick as we could get them to you. So again, there are, next year, I would say, Chairman, maybe 2 weeks from now, shouldn't be an issue next year. That should be more than enough time to do our evaluation. Ultimately, however council wants to handle these requests on an annual basis, certainly that could be the conversation for the next meeting. I know Darren's here. I just want to mention this. So I know Darren would probably share or say, the dollars that this council gives out through their evaluation process, those amounts are a lot smaller at Visit Pensacola, which is why those folks do come here. So I'll let you have your vote, and then I do need to make one statement for council, or I can do it now, Chairman, however you'd like to do it.
Since there's a motion, let's have the vote, and then we'll take that. Any debate or discussion?
I had a question. Are we going to continue to accept incomplete forms, or do we want
No, I
to?
think that was the question. I think we're,
So if they're incomplete, do we want to take them off of the ask, or are we going to still review them? And I have no idea whose they are. I don't know, because I haven't reviewed all them.
But if they're incomplete at this point, I wouldn't accept.
Okay.
I mean, that's.
I would second that.
Well, we have a motion on the floor. Is that part of your motion? Do you want to make that part of your motion?
I'll amend my motion
Okay. To include that?
to include the commissioner's suggestion.
Okay. And your second? So we have an amended motion and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. If you would please call the roll.
Tish Patel.
Yes.
James Reeves. Ashley Hoffberger. Yes. Shirley Cronley.
Yes.
David Baer.
Yes.
Charles Baer.
Yes.
Jennifer Breyer.
Yes.
Is that correct? Brad Mullinex.
Yes.
And Jason Nicholson.
Yes.
All right, motion carries, although that motion was to adjourn this meeting early. We do have another item before we actually adjourn. Yes. Stefan? It's just informational.
Good afternoon, council. So I did want to provide some additional information on the bank loan. So the council approved $25 million for the bank loan. There is an additional $100,000 for the cost of the debt issuance. So I did want to provide that revised number. It's 25.1 that we are seeking the bank loan on. So per our policy, I'm making council aware of that minor change.
Thank you.
And should you need the breakdown of that, I have provided that to the chairman.
I can't share it with them.
Okay, all right. I will provide that to our staff over here, and we'll send that out to everybody so you can see the
Unless you can get a waiver from
breakdown.
our Florida legislature.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Does that relate to the artificial turf? Is that what that's for, or what is that for?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I will work with county staff to identify a couple of days. I'll ask to send it out 2 p.m., right? Does that work for everyone? 2 p.m. For the next meeting, and we'll set it from there. So any other? Yes, sir.
I think. Where did the proposed budget for the next year come from? That's in here.
From me.
Okay.
So there was the request, you see that the 3 columns the current fiscal year, the requested, and then I tried to fit everything into the actual dollar amount that we have to appropriate. And it was only my suggestion as a starting point for our discussion. There's nothing fixed. It's proposed by me.
After a thorough review of all of the backup information,
Well,
you made that?
many of them are returning grants. I think there was only maybe one that was not. So knowing their programs, based on my thorough background check of those other organizations.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I
sir.
just want to say that as far as letting these outside agencies, meaning ACE, meaning Pensacola, they tend to think whatever their percentage is their money. And I think, we ought to provide some way that they have additional money, but then put it out on new items. I mean,
So like a grant pot?
yeah.
Yeah.
What they do is they go to the ACE, and ACE says, we're all tied up, why don't you go to the big board? And I just think we need to provide some money to those 3 agencies so they have new money and they have new money efforts in that regard. Just
Right.
an idea.
So in years past, before I was on this TDC, when I was chairman of ACE's board, we were having those discussions. I was having those discussions with some of the other previous former commissioners. And one of the concerns was those are all independent agencies. They're not agencies of the county. They're not appointed board members by the county in any form. And by trying to dictate how they do their programs, we're taking away that independence from them because we're forcing them to do something that their mission may not meet, and they lose their independence.
A couple other agencies would like to be independent like them.
Like which ones?
I mean, why those 3?
Why are those three what?
Why those three are independent?
All of
Why don't we
these,
have two or three more independent?
I think you do. I think you have Mardi Gras Pensacola is an independent organization, and we're not telling them how to make up their board and how to allocate their funds, or Navy Days, or the Island Authority, or the
They all
Pensacola
come to
Chamber.
the board
Pens-
to get money.
Right, they're all coming here requesting funds as independent entities, agencies. ACE has a process, Visit Pensacola has a process, Pensacola Sports has a process.
That's how, keep on doing it the same old way. Fine with me.
I'm just telling you what the conversations we've had in the past, and what the possible,
Taking my gummy bears and
you're gonna go? All right, well, grab your marbles. Anyway, is there any other comments, any other discussion?
Do we think we'll have enough time to have all those applications in the portal instead of a bunch of separate emails? It got real confusing to figure out which emailer I've checked or which download, which, it was very hard to keep track of. And then even maybe like a checklist that, hey, there's 15 applications. You're supposed to look at 15 different, and because I really didn't know who I was looking at, how many I was supposed to make sure I, like, there's no checklist of, hey, these are the 15 you should look at. And
What's that? All the different items? Okay,
All the groups should be listed on the agenda.
okay.
So right
So-
now, sir, you guys should see each folder on the SharePoint individually labeled with each applicant's name on it as well. What the problem was, from what I understand, is not all council members were able to access all of the folders. That's a different subject that I'll work with Danielle, and we'll try to figure that piece out. But on the SharePoint, there's 15 applications on there right now, and they're all labeled by applicant name.
Okay.
Are we pulling some of those if they were incomplete?
So that's 3 of the 15, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we're down to
Based on the
12.
motion, we're going to pull those, and there will be 12 remaining named labeled folders.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
Just to
Councilman.
that same point, though, I think the reason we're asking for them on the agenda is so that the public has access as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, so
We'll-
if we have everything there, I mean, everything should be, that's why.
Sure, it was unfortunate, I mean, it was
people should have
unable,
access
obviously,
to it.
this time, but yes, ma'am, we'll make sure
Okay.
those are on the agenda
Thanks.
as well.
Yep. Yeah, so on the county's website, on the calendar, under the TDC, there will, be, for today's meeting, there's the link, and it opens up the agenda. And on there, there is agenda packet, and you can click, and, okay. So it might be a technical problem. I had opened it the other day and saw what we had already received in the portal was on there, but we hadn't received everything yet anyway. But that is where hopefully it would all be. Yes,
And I just wanted to say that one of the issues with the SharePoint was with getting that access to that shared folder was that City of Pensacola was throwing in spam every time that code would come through. So I had to call and get them to release that. So there are issues
Absolutely,
with that
sir.
as well.
We learned that today as well, so
Okay, thanks.
appreciate it.
any other comments? Close it. If not, call this meeting adjourned and rescheduled. Thank you.